Hi everyone, Tom was here, back at it with another Tom Was Here Halloween Haunts review. It's only been months. Unfortunately, with the secondary channel, when you have a full-time job and a family and responsibilities, plus you're the only one doing this, the editing, the filming, all this stuff, is that, you kind of get sidetracked and sometimes things don't work out for you. But considering I made a promise to all of the haunts I visited last year that I was going to do a review of it, I had dropped the ball here. So now that it's halfway to Halloween yet again, and want to ensure for some of these haunts that I don't get all the way to Halloween without having done them, knowing that I'm going to be crazy and try to do this all again, I'm going to start doing some of these haunt reviews. So be expecting some hot and heavy review content on the channel. And we begin with the one we left out on, which is Houston's Haunted Hollow for the 2023 season. Now, considering I visited them in mid-October, mid to late October 2023, and now it is May 2024, there may be some details that are fuzzy about this, but rest assured, there are certainly things I remember, and certainly things that, I know from Houston's Haunted Hollow, or Haunted Hollow, whichever one you want to call it, over the years, to, to know enough about it to give a detailed review. So, let's get into a review of Houston's Haunted Hollow for the 2023 season on Tom Was Here Halloween Haunts. Okay, so Houston's Haunted Hollow, we went there on a Friday night. It was the middle of their season, roughly, maybe mid to late portion of their season, because they do kind of close on Halloween. Some places are open beyond Halloween, but they do close on Halloween. So maybe to the later portion of their season. And it was unfortunately a rainy night. And Rockwood, Pennsylvania is a bit of a trek. You're going out to the Laurel Highlands from the Pittsburgh area. So you're going to places near, like, you see signs for things like Falling Water and Nemacolin and the things that are out that area. Places that I do want to eventually visit on the channel, but usually the only time I get out there is for Halloween season. But the one thing I can say is that if you're doing kind of a loop as far as like these areas are concerned, if you're doing multiple haunts in a night, you can get to Haunted Hollow. It is a little bit of a trek, but not, probably within 30 to 45 minutes of a couple other haunts in the area, like Fright Farm, like Crawford School of Terror, like Haunted Hills Estates Green Park. So if you want to do multiple haunts in a night, you can certainly pull that off and still get to Haunted Hollow, even though it is a trek. But it's well worth the trek. And ever since I visited for the first time in 2020, there have really embraced the channel here and myself, and kind of give me a family atmosphere. There are several haunts now that truly embrace me visiting like an old friend almost when I come out, and Haunted Hollow is certainly one of those, and I do appreciate that. A lot of different people that are in the show do reach out to me, and are friends with me on Facebook and so in different social media. So it's very, very cool to out there and see so many people that not just are thrilled with what they do there, but also are happy to see me come out. So there's no, that's really cool. That's always nice to see. Or like when you get called up by name in a haunt, which is an odd thing for me. It's still very strange. It was strange when it happened the first time. That strangeness hasn't entirely worn off, because who am I? I'm not, I'm just a guy that has a channel. But, it's almost a realization that people actually watch. It's also bizarre to me when people come up at haunts or other places and they're like, hey, like, we watched the channel and, we watched your video before we came out here, which is like the ultimate compliment to me whenever people do that. But it's still strange to me. I really don't expect anyone to ever watch these. I really don't. I just assume, I see the counts and it seems like people do, but it's just strange when someone actually says they do. So I appreciate that nonetheless. But also to see it from not just people that are, watching it to go out, but also the people that are in the show themselves. It's a great compliment, and I'm highly honored when I hear people watch. But yeah, Houston's Haunted Hollow, very kind to me, have been since the jump. I cannot go by a Haunted Hollow video without mentioning Tika. Ran the kind of the social media and things in the haunts, and she was really the first person I asked directly, with no knowledge of that I exist, to film a portion of the haunt. She was kind enough to let us do so. For those that don't know the story, unfortunately, she passed away only a few short weeks after I had met her, and we had certainly had plans to do future events at Haunted Hollow over the years. And, I was obviously crushed as much as you could be crushed with something that to something you didn't truly know, but clearly the people of Haunted Hollow, the cast and the crew, loved her, and you saw that in the post. And having, met her and talked to her only weeks before, I really liked her as just a fun person. That resonates through our conversation. She is a person that really embraced the concept of it. She really started it, and to be fair, a lot of people have, carried that benchmark since, that haunt people are really my favorite people. They're the nicest people that you could ever be around. People that usually run haunts, I end up talking with them afterwards, and I've done this now many years with many different haunts. And there's not one that I've come across that isn't a gem of a person. Just easy to conversate with, easy to have a good time with. Like, you're catching up with old friends, even when they're just random strangers you really don't know from anyone, but they're kind enough to you, you're kind enough to them, and you have a dialogue about the haunt, about different haunts, about Halloween, about life, about anything, and you can talk and have this conversation, and it's effortless. Like, it does not take, you're not carrying the conversation, they're not carrying the conversation, it's just a nice, natural dialogue. And Tika was really the first one we actually took a chance on to see if we could film. She was really, really kind to us, and I'll never forget that. And so anytime I do anything on Haunted Hollow, I do have to bring her up and carry on her legacy. Obviously those at Haunted Hollow knew her, but even people outside, she was a really nice person. And so it bums me out that she's not with us, because I think we would have had more fun adventures and things like that over the years that unfortunately did not get to happen. So when visiting Haunted Hollow, it was a Friday night, it was raining. Haunted Hollow packs them in. Their parking lot is massive. And every time we've gone there over the past few years, it's been filled. Now, this night, it was a Friday night, it was not filled, but that was also because it was raining. And yet still, and I looked and I was like, man, this song's not all that busy. And then when we went over to they have a covering that covers the, a big tent that kind of covers their queue line. Their queue line was still massive and still full. So even when they have a slow night, they're packing them in. And good for them. But they were kind enough to let me film. They were kind enough to let me use the flashlight for the main portion of the haunt, which, look, I shoot on my phone. It's not the most ideal. The iPhone is great for 4K. It's great for 4K. It produces high quality video. During the daytime, it looks great. I'd put the Pepsi Challenge next to almost any camera available on the market, for what it is. The video looks great. When it comes to low light, when it comes to night shoots, it leaves a little to be desired. It's not as good as it could be. There's certainly other cameras out there that are better. I'm going to probably try to experiment again this year with some cameras. I have some cameras at the house. I have some cameras that I've underutilized over the years that I might try to use with. But if you let me use the lights, it looks just as good as anybody else's video that does haunt videos anywhere else. And they were kind enough to, at least throughout the first walkthrough portion, let me use the lights. Now, the idea is not to blind your actors. the idea is to showcase your haunt in the best light. Now, certain haunts do not necessarily want me to use light, and for rightfully so. Maybe they feel their set pieces or things that, a lot of people use, like homemade stuff that looks necessarily great in the dark, but when you shine a big flashlight on it, maybe it doesn't look as good, or maybe the walls don't, or maybe some of their things don't, which I certainly understand and appreciate. I'm going to film it just the same, but when it comes to Haunted Hollow, they were kind enough to let me use the light, and I thought it turned out very, very well. Um, Also, they don't rest on their kind of laurels. The Hollow's like, well, we're going to change it up every once in a while. Like for their first walkthrough, they had a couple different, like a newer set piece, one that had a church setting, which I thought fit in very well with their theming. They also have different characters in different places. When you see something unexpected, or when a character pops out that wasn't what you were expecting, immediately you're you're taken aback. You kind of have a blueprint in your idea, like this is the way this is going to go, and I go this way, and I go this way, and I go through this tunnel and this corridor. And when you go a different way or a different direction, or something changes, as you're walking through, you're like, wait, that's new, that's different. So Haunted Hollow is able to do that, and they do that in several instances throughout the haunt, and it is a sprawling haunt. The main walkthrough, which has the haunted house, it has the hospital. Once you walk through there, then you get on a cart, and you get driven into like the middle of the woods, and there's a lengthy woods walkthrough, and then you get on the cart and you drive back, and then there's like a lengthy corn maze walkthrough. So it's pretty lengthy. Other than certain haunts around the area, you roughly have a 20 to 25 minute experience. Haunted Hollow is definitely closer to the 45 minutes to an hour mark, depending on the evening, and depending on how quickly you decide to run or walk through such a thing. So it's a lengthier one, which is a good thing. Some people think that's too long. I've heard people, say certain ones are too long. I've never run into ones that I felt was too long. I'm happy to be in the moment. I like when it lasts longer than than I expected to. But yeah, Houston's Haunted Hollow, one of those things. And their first walkthrough portion, the house and the hospital, is excellent. It is really, really good. There's a lot of cool and unique set pieces in there, things that you don't necessarily see anywhere else, and they do a great job with it. There were also some new characters in this case. Mrs. Bruner, that I remember, that walked us through the house. She was not there in years past, but she was there to kind of warn us about the things we could potentially see in the house. And several characters climbing the walls and doing all types of crazy stuff. That's always cool. The character that I use for the thumbnail, I don't know how often she does this or what she's using, but to the point where she, I don't know if it was like a blood capsule or whatever, but by the time I, focused on her, by the time the camera was on her, she had blood pouring out of her mouth. Great touch. Solid touch. It was really, really well done. And they do, like I said, a very good job with it to be in that, moment. A wide variety of different characters as far as what you're going to run into there. They're also really good, especially in the hospital portion. There are a couple characters that legitimately, over the years, and have been in that walkthrough for years, there are a couple characters that honestly, I thought they were a mannequin. I thought they were someone that was, I thought it was a foam dummy that was there. There was one in particular, I know this past year, where I walked past them just thinking that they were an animatronic, and they leaped out and they came very close to me, called me out by name, and I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize you were a real person." That gave me the full jump back, because I'm a startle scare. I rarely get jumpy at this point. I've been through so many different haunted houses that but I don't expect things to pop out. If I get startled if something pops out, or I get startled if some does a thing or whatever, it's. If something unexpected comes out, I'm very startled. But if you get me to do like the full jump back, like if you catch me the right angle or whatever, well done and bravo. And they certainly did that here. And then they also have legacy characters. Now they have a legacy character of Nurse Candy, who I didn't actually see. Usually, she's there to greet us at the front of the hospital portion, but it was a different character this time who was great. And then there's always the doctor in there that's terrific. So everybody, there's a lot of people, both old and new, that do a great job at Haunted Hollow. And that main walkthrough, the main haunted house and the hospital walkthrough, is probably my favorite portion of the entire haunt. You get a lot of wide variety of different scares and different, great things. There's a vortex tunnel in there. There's all types of different stuff in there. So it's really, really cool. And all the characters in there do a great job. Now, then you get on the hayride, and they've done variations of things with the hayride over the years. I know they did like TikToks one year, and for the last few years, they've been doing like trailers of like movies that they shot there. And look, I love a good B movie, B scary rated movie. I have watched a ton of them. But I did mention this in the quick review on the video, and I'll mention this here as well. I want to be in your B movie, Haunted Hollow. I want to be in your B horror movie. I want to be promptly killed off. In fact, I like a situation where I play myself as TomWasHere, as doing a abandoned house review or something like that, only to be promptly killed off. I'm if you'll allow me, if you'll honor me to do such a thing, I would be thrilled. So that's, I don't know if you guys are doing that this year, but if you consider it, I would love to be involved, and I would love to be murdered off. But yeah, beyond that, that takes you it's pretty lengthy cart ride into the woods there, and then the woods walkthrough seems to get longer every year. They add on these new additions, they add on these longer like swamp like walkthroughs, and there is the uneasiness. There's not, and I don't know if it's because it was a Friday night, there was not like a ton of characters in the woods. Plus, it was a colder night too. Cold and rainy. So kudos to everybody that's out in those woods for 3-4 hours in an evening, getting rained on. That can't be an easy gig. And for those of you that stuck it out, you are superstars. You do an awesome job. There was a new like witch's den that was out in the woods. The witch was very kind enough to greet me by name. She knew exactly who I was. She immediately wanted in her stew. And, considering my bigger frame, it's certainly, stew that would last for a little while if it was well kept. But no, she was doing a great job out there. But yeah, everybody that goes, you're like, I'm going to spend the night in the woods or outside for a few hours, in some pretty rough conditions. Pennsylvania is this ain't Florida. There's no, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes you'll get an unseasonably warm night, and that's great. But for the most part, you can get in some rough elements there. Some cold, some rain, some, sometimes snow, depending on, October, not as of late, but, definitely in years past. So the people that stuck it out, through those elements to still give you a good haunt experience, give them a gold star. Now, we were with a group, and I was bummed I didn't get to go with them. We were in a group of people where there was one girl that is your favorite person in a haunted house. She's scared of everything. And they were messing with her in the queue line before before you enter the woods, you do this like small walkthrough thing through some trailers, and they like line you up almost like in a stable, and then they put you in smaller groups to go through the woods. The most ideal way to go through the woods is in smaller groups, versus like a large conga line through there. Maybe you'll lose some of the appeal and excitement and some of the scares as well. The Universal Studios approach to haunted houses, where it's just a constant conga line because there's so much volume, but she was terrified. Scared to death, of everything. And man, you could hear her well down the ways screaming and whatever. And that's your favorite person. That's the best person to have with a haunted house. That's the ideal person you want to have through a haunted house. And just her, just her doing it adds to the experience overall. Everybody was getting a kick out of it. I know her boyfriend was, or whatever, but yeah, it's always a fun time to be through there with those type of people. But bummed I didn't get to go in the small group with them. People I did go in the small group with, because it was only me and my son this time around. Sometimes we have larger groups or whatever, but me and my son did this one, and yeah, he gives nothing. He When I say he gives nothing, I mean he does not get startled. He does not get scared. He does not, and you very rarely do you get him in a situation where he gets caught off guard by anything. The people that we were with did get scared more than a few times on the trail, and then kept acknowledging that they're walking ahead of me, and I'm thinking I'm filming, so then they're gonna be on YouTube being embarrassed, kind of. But it was so dark in the thing, and it was so dark in that area. That's an area where I could have used some light, because a lot of that footage I did have to cut out just because it was so dark. And I think even with a low light camera, you probably only would have been able to get a little bit more. As much as certain haunted houses, there's times when there are portions of it where there's some light that actually you can show kind of what's going on. The woods walkthrough is pretty dark for the most part. There's a couple different areas, like the witches one, or the final walkthrough with the clowns, that do have some good light to it, so you can actually see what's going on. But people that are like shrouded in darkness, and darkness for a reason, it's tough to get any sort of thing out of that without a light. And the light might diminish the experience. I've run into several haunts now where some of them were kind enough to let me use the light, some of them were kind enough to not. And in both instances I wondered, like, because there are a couple haunts I went through where they used the light the entire time, but it's mainly dark haunt, outdoor. And they always say, like, well, your experience would probably be better in the dark. And they may be right on that. That the light took away a little bit or cheapened some of the experience. In the few instances where I did that, I didn't feel it did. But there are also instances where one time, through some of these darker ones, it'd be cool to use a light. Now, that may be tough for some of the scare actors who use darkness as a hiding spot. That may be, if you have a giant light, point out to them that they may lose their hiding spot, therefore losing the effect. So I understand that. It's a toss-up either way. Obviously, I want to, get great content for the channel that people watch. I want to showcase your haunt in the best possible light, but at the same time, maybe losing some of the experience by keeping a light. Who knows? But yeah, there's a kind of the walkthrough ends through this like clown portion, where there's a lot of different very active clowns. The first time we went through there in 2020. There was a big lady on stilts, and it was crazy, and there's dinosaur head and all this craziness going on. So since then, they haven't yet to capture that magic, but the clowns are spirited, they're fun, they're having a great time, and I had a great time with them as well. But yeah, that walkthrough portion is lengthy. It's definitely a lengthier portion. You will get some muddy shoes at certain times, depending. Obviously, wear don't wear your best shoes out there for that. I certainly would. Any outdoor haunt, especially any like farm type haunt, I wouldn't wear your best shoes. It's such an experience. That's just a word of warning. So get back on the cart. And then you get dumped off onto the kind of corn maze portion. And the corn maze is a in previous years, it was kind of more like a linear path, so it wasn't really too much of a maze, but there were a couple times when we did go the wrong direction this time, so it's definitely more of a maze than I remember it in years past. Now, that could be my memory messing with me, but I definitely took some wrong turns in this one versus in years past, but it is very dark in there. The other thing that I found is, and this is not, this is more my gripes, of which if you watched my haunted house or amusement park or any other type videos, you well know. as you're getting closer to the end of the maze, the DJ's right there. He's banging out those copyrighted jams. So I then have to, either like lose the audio or do like a voiceover portion of it, or with wearing a microphone, like I'm wearing for this, like this type of thing, I could potentially wear into the haunt. Maybe that will help to isolate the outside copyrighted noises. But beyond that, some good scare actors in there, chainsaws, giant pigs, other fun stuff that they have in that walkthrough maze. It's not to the point of like, there's other corn mazes I've done at other haunts where I got completely lost for a while. It's not to that level. There's still a path and it's still fairly easy to get through, but there are certain twists and turns you'll take where you are lost. I think if you keep listening to the music is your guide to eventually get your way out. A nice ending to the Haunted Hollow experience. Obviously, if it was anything for like the future, getting the outdoor walkthrough and the maze portion to maybe have a couple more like bigger set pieces or things that kind of more memorable about them, like certainly the Witch's Brew and things help, but there's certain areas when you're walking through both the corn maze and the lengthy woods walkthrough that you're just walking along, there's really no one there. Now that could be because of call-offs, because of people that couldn't come out that night because it was raining and miserable. People get sick that time of year. It's not easy to run a haunt that I've experienced now, but I did several haunts last year where I actually, did the full makeup and worked the night. I felt it afterwards. I'm every bit of 40 at this point. That's not to say I wouldn't do it again this year. And considering the fun and good times I've had with the people of Haunted Hollow, if they would have me, I would certainly consider doing it there. Just a matter of if I want to put myself through the rigors of doing that again this year, because that slightly terrifies me a bit. But maybe there's a few haunts that may have my services for this year if I can gear myself up to it. I'm trying to get in a little bit better shape, so we'll see how that goes. Let me know your thoughts on Haunted Hollow for the 2023 season. Did you like it? Is it something I noticed they have a nice loyal fan base of people that obviously are in the area looking for haunts and they come out to that. Certainly, it's more of a trek for me to come out to that, coming from the Pittsburgh area. But I do think it's well worth your time to come out from the Pittsburgh area for it. I think it's a great haunt, and I think it is, one that they, constantly try to improve and add on to. You can easily sit there and be like, oh, well, this is the haunt, and that's what this is what we do, and, that's it. But they don't do that. They constantly find ways to improve. The characters change often, yearly, beyond like the legacy characters and people that they have that have been there for many years, and they do a good job of making it feel new and fresh each time. And I certainly highly recommend, 2 thumbs up for me. Like I love it when I go out there. They're very kind to me, they're very kind to the channel, and they do a very great job of what they do. And that's generally why their lines are out the door and their parking lots full each and every time I've ever seen it, unless there's rain, unfortunately. But that'll wrap it up for my review of Houston's Haunted Hollow for the 2023 season, and my apologies for the delay. I will be doing more of these more often. I know I've said that in reviews past, that there's been long delays between them, but I'm actually going to try to do more here. But guys, thanks so much for watching. If you are new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you like to support me on Patreon, like John Bailey, like Brett Persing, like Faye Ann, you can do so. Link is in the description below. There's also a link to the main channel, my TomWasHere channel, that has a walkthrough, or at least my video, of Houston's Haunted Hollow for the 2023 season, and make sure to check that out, as well as links to eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, and the Pennsylvania Autograph Collectors Association. Links are in the description below. When it comes to the next haunt review or the next video, I will see you soon. But until then, bye everyone.